I need to stop here for a moment. I made the decision to show up at my wife's lover's apartment unannounced, not to cause a scene, not to throw punches, but to look him in the eye and ask one simple question that had been eating me alive for weeks. When he opened that door, what he told me made every muscle in my body go rigid. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Gerald Martinez. I'm 61 years old. For 30 years, I worked as an insurance claims adjuster, specializing in fraud investigations. I've caught people staging fake accidents, creating phony medical claims, and running elaborate property damage schemes. I thought I'd seen every kind of deception there was. I was wrong. Because nothing prepares you for the moment you discover that the person you've loved for 32 years, the woman you built a life with, the mother of your children, has been running the biggest con of all right under your nose. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I had just gotten back from my daily walk with Rex, our German Shepherd we'd adopted when I retired 3 years ago. Patricia, my wife, was supposed to be at her Tuesday morning real estate continuing education class. She'd been taking these courses every week for the past 8 months, ever since she got serious about her new career with Sunset Realty. That particular morning, I decided to surprise her with lunch, so I drove to the community college where her class was held. Her car wasn't in the parking lot. I called the main office. "Excuse me, I'm looking for information about the Tuesday Real Estate Continuing Education program." The woman sounded confused. "Sir, we don't offer any real estate courses on Tuesdays. Our real estate program meets Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. We've had the same schedule for 3 years." I sat in my truck in that empty parking lot, my mind racing. Where was Patricia every Tuesday morning? I drove home, my insurance, investigator instincts kicking in. When she came through the door at 1:30 p.m., she was glowing. "Class was fantastic today," she said, setting down her purse. "We covered commercial property assessments, really complex stuff, but I'm getting the hang of it." I watched her carefully. After 30 years of questioning insurance claimants, I knew the signs of deception, the slight hesitation before speaking, the way she avoided direct eye contact, the unnecessary detail meant to convince me. "Sounds challenging," I said. "What was the instructor's name again?" "Oh, Mr. Richardson. Very knowledgeable guy." She headed to the kitchen quickly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling while Patricia slept peacefully beside me. 32 years of marriage. We'd met at a company picnic when she was teaching elementary school. Beautiful, patient, smart enough to deal with a husband who spent his days chasing down liars and cheats. We'd raised 2 kids together. Philip, now 31, and working as a CPA in Seattle, and Carol, 28, a school principal right here in Phoenix. Good kids, solid careers. We'd done something right, or so I thought. The next morning, after Patricia left for her yoga class, I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a GPS tracker on her car. In Arizona, it's legal for spouses to track vehicles they jointly own. I also started paying attention to details I'd been ignoring. The new credit card statements that came addressed only to her, the phone calls she'd taken in the other room, the way she'd suddenly become interested in expensive restaurants I'd never heard of. Within a week, the GPS told me everything I needed to know. Tuesday mornings weren't spent at any community college. They were spent at a luxury condo complex in Scottsdale. Thursday yoga sessions were actually 3-hour visits to the same location. I drove by the complex on a Thursday afternoon and saw Patricia's Honda in the visitor parking. I waited. At 5:15 p.m., she emerged from Building C with a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, well-dressed, confident. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot like lovers do. I followed him to his car and wrote down the license plate. Back home, I ran the plates through a contact I still had at the DMV. Victor Nash, age 43, registered owner of Nash Property Solutions. I looked up his business online: property flipping, real estate investments, development consulting. His website was slick, professional, full of before and after photos of renovated properties and testimonials from satisfied investors. That evening, Patricia came home from yoga, glowing again. "Great session today. We're really making progress on those advanced poses." She was lying to my face with the same ease she'd probably been using for months. "That's wonderful, honey. By the way, I was thinking we should review our investment portfolio soon. Maybe look at diversifying a bit." Something flickered in her eyes. just for a second. Oh, well, we can discuss that later. I'm going to shower. I waited until she was upstairs, then I did what I'd never done in 32 years of marriage. I went through her purse. Her phone was locked, but I knew Patricia. She used our anniversary date for everything. 041591. The phone unlocked immediately. I went straight to her recent calls. There it was. Victor Nash called 47 times in the past month. Text messages too. I opened the thread with shaking hands. Can't wait to see you Thursday. Gerald's playing golf with his friend Howard, so we'll have the whole afternoon. Tuesday was incredible. I love what you've done with the master bedroom. The investment paperwork looks good. When do you think we should tell him about the partnership? Investment paperwork. Partnership. My blood ran cold. I scrolled up through weeks of messages planning meetings, discussing our future, talking about properties and investment opportunities I'd never heard of. And then I found the message that changed everything. Victor, I transferred another $45,000 into the LLC account today. That brings us to $180,000 total. Gerald still doesn't suspect anything. $180,000. That was our retirement account. I took screenshots of everything, emailed them to a private account I created, then deleted all evidence I'd been in her phone. My hands were shaking as I put it back exactly where I'd found it. $180,000 was more than half our retirement savings. Money we'd accumulated over 30 years of careful planning. Money I'd earned investigating fraudsters just like my own wife had apparently become. But I needed more evidence before confronting her. In my career, I'd learned that premature confrontation always gave the guilty party time to cover their tracks or destroy evidence. I called my old friend, Detective Ray Morrison from the Phoenix PD. Ray, I need a favor. Can you run a background check on someone? Victor Nash, age 43, owns Nash Property Solutions. Sure. Gerald, give me 24 hours. The next day, Ray called back with information that made my blood run cold. Your boy Nash has an interesting history. No convictions, but he's been investigated twice for real estate fraud. 2019 in Tucson, a widow lost $200,000 in a fake property flipping scheme. Case was dropped due to insufficient evidence. 2021 in Flagstaff, similar situation. Divorced woman, $150,000 gone. Pattern seems to be targeting middle-aged women with access to significant cash. I hung up feeling sick. Patricia wasn't Nash's first victim, and she probably wouldn't be his last. But she wasn't just a victim. She was an active participant. Those text messages showed she was fully aware she was hiding money from me. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. I photographed credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels during times Patricia claimed to be at work, expensive purchases I'd never seen. I tracked her movements with a GPS and created a detailed timeline of her lies. Tuesday and Thursday, visits to Nash's condo. Friday, lunch meetings at upscale restaurants. Saturday, open house visits that lasted 4 hours. I also discovered something else. Patricia had opened a business credit card in both our names without my knowledge. The statements were being sent to a P.O. box I didn't know existed. She'd charged $35,000 on it. Furniture, electronics, even a vacation to Sedona I knew nothing about. My name was on the account, making me legally responsible for the debt. Then I found the LLC paperwork. Martinez Investment Properties, a limited liability company formed 6 months ago with Patricia Martinez and Victor Nash as equal partners. My wife had used my last name to create a business I'd never authorized, never signed for, never even heard of until that moment. The signature on the LLC documents was supposed to be mine. I'd reviewed enough forged documents to recognize the work immediately. It was good, very good. But it wasn't perfect. The G in Gerald was too rounded, and the tail on the Zaidi in Martinez was wrong. Patricia had been practicing my signature, but she hadn't quite mastered it. I made copies of everything and stored them in a safety deposit box at a different bank. Then I did what I should have done from the beginning. I called a lawyer. Timothy Fletcher specialized in divorce and financial fraud. His office was across town, far from anywhere Patricia might accidentally see me. Mr. Martinez, Fletcher said after reviewing my evidence. Your wife has committed multiple felonies, forging your signature on business documents, opening credit accounts without authorization, transferring community property without disclosure. In Arizona, these are serious crimes. What about the money she's already given to Nash? Recovering that depends on what Nash has done with it. If it's gone, it's gone. But we can certainly pursue criminal charges against both of them. I don't want to send my wife to prison, I said. I just want to protect what's left of our assets. I understand, but Mr. Martinez, you need to know that this may not be the full extent of her deception. People who commit financial fraud rarely stop at one scheme. I recommend you have a forensic accountant review all your financial records going back at least 2 years. That hit me like a punch to the gut. How long had this been going on? How much more money was missing? I hired the accountant Fletcher recommended, a woman named Carol Stevens who specialized in marital asset tracing. The results came back 10 days later. Patricia had been systematically looting our accounts for over a year. Small withdrawals at first, $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Amounts small enough that I wouldn't notice on casual review of statements. But they added up to $47,000 beyond the $180,000 I already knew about. She'd also taken out a home equity line of credit against our house. Our house, which we'd paid off 8 years earlier. The one asset I thought was completely secure. She'd borrowed $125,000 against it, forging my signature again on the loan documents. The money had gone into the Martinez Investment Properties account, then immediately transferred to various other accounts I couldn't trace. Total theft, $352,000, nearly everything we'd saved in 30 years of marriage. But the forensic accountant found something else, something that explained how Patricia had managed to hide so much financial activity from me. She'd been intercepting our mail, bank statements, credit card bills, loan documents, all being sent to that P.O. box I'd discovered. For over a year, I'd been living in a carefully constructed financial fantasy while Patricia slowly drained our life savings. That night, I sat in my home office surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and I realized something that chilled me to the bone. This wasn't a midlife crisis gone wrong. This wasn't a woman making bad decisions because she was lonely or unfulfilled. This was a carefully planned, methodically executed theft that had been in motion for over a year. Patricia had become a criminal, and I'd been her target all along. Now I faced a choice. I could confront Patricia immediately with what I'd discovered, or I could continue gathering evidence to understand the full scope of her betrayal. The investigator in me knew the answer. In fraud cases, you never know how deep the deception goes until you've mapped out the entire scheme. I decided to keep digging. I needed to understand Nash's operation better. Using a fake name and email address, I contacted Nash Property Solutions, expressing interest in investment opportunities. Within 2 hours, Nash called me personally. His sales pitch was smooth, professional, convincing. He talked about exclusive property rehabilitation projects with guaranteed returns of 18 to 24% annually. He mentioned several successful partnerships with sophisticated investors who'd seen extraordinary profits. I'm actually meeting with one of our top investors tomorrow, he told me. Patricia Martinez. She's made over $300,000 profit in just 8 months with our firm. My blood went cold. $300,000 profit? That was impossible unless Patricia had invested far more than the $180,000 I knew about. Or unless Nash was lying to potential victims about fictional success stories. I asked to meet in person to discuss investment opportunities. Nash suggested his office the following Thursday. That was perfect. Patricia would think she was meeting him for their regular Thursday afternoon liaison. Instead, I'd be there waiting. But first, I called my children. This was the hardest part. Philip and Carol needed to know what was happening before I made my final move. I asked them both to come home for the weekend, telling them I had something important to discuss about the family. Saturday afternoon, we sat in my backyard while Patricia was supposedly at an open house showing. I showed them everything. The GPS tracking records, the text messages, the bank statements, the forged signatures. Philip's face went from confusion to shock to anger. Carol, with her educator's training in handling difficult situations, remained calm, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. Dad, I can't believe this. Philip said. Mom would never. This is fraud. This is theft. I didn't want to believe it either, I replied. But the evidence doesn't lie. Carol asked the question I'd been dreading. What are you going to do? I'm going to confront Nash first, then your mother. I need to understand exactly how deep this goes before I make any decisions about criminal charges or divorce. Dad, Carol said quietly, will support whatever decision you make. What she's done, it's not just illegal, it's a complete betrayal of everything our family stands for. Philip was angrier. She's stolen our inheritance. That money was supposed to help us someday, help her grandchildren. And she's just given it to some con artist? That's what I'm going to find out, I said. But I need you both to promise me something. Don't let your mother know that you know. Not until after I've confronted Nash and gotten the full picture. Thursday arrived. I drove to Nash's office building, a gleaming glass tower in North Scottsdale. Nash Property Solutions occupied a corner suite on the 12th floor. Expensive furniture, stunning city views, walls covered with photos of renovated properties and grateful client testimonials. It looked completely legitimate. Nash greeted me warmly, dressed in a $3,000 suit, gold watch, Italian leather shoes. Everything about him screamed success and trustworthiness. He offered me coffee and launched into his presentation. Mr. Johnson, he said, using the fake name I'd given him, I'm going to share with you the same opportunity that's made my clients incredibly wealthy. He pulled out a leather portfolio filled with documents, property photos, renovation budgets, profit projections, testimonials from satisfied investors. It was impressive, professional, and completely convincing. If I hadn't known better, I would have been tempted to invest myself. Our most successful client is a woman named Patricia Martinez, Nash continued. She started with a modest $50,000 investment 8 months ago. To date, she's invested a total of $380,000 with our firm, and her current portfolio value is approaching $700,000. $380,000. That was more than our entire life savings. How was that possible? Nash pulled out a folder labeled P. Martinez, Portfolio Summary. I tried to keep my expression neutral as he showed me documents that made my head spin. Patricia had apparently invested in 7 different properties, each showing substantial returns on paper. But something was wrong with the numbers. The properties were all in remote areas of rural Arizona, places where land was cheap but development was unlikely. The renovation budgets were inflated. The profit projections were impossibly optimistic. And most damning of all, several of the before and after photos were clearly the same property photographed from different angles to make it look like multiple investments. This wasn't just fraud, it was a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. Nash was using new investor money to pay fake returns to existing investors, creating the illusion of success to attract more victims. Patricia wasn't just being scammed, she was helping Nash scam others by serving as a testimonial. I'd love to meet this Patricia Martinez, I said casually. Success stories are always inspiring. Nash smiled. Actually, she's coming by this afternoon for a portfolio review, but we keep our client meetings confidential for privacy reasons. Of course. Well, this all sounds very promising. Let me review these materials and get back to you. I left Nash's office with copies of Patricia's fake portfolio and a clear understanding of the scope of the fraud. My wife had given Nash $380,000 of our money she'd stolen through forgery, lies, and financial manipulation. In return, she'd received worthless paper certificates and the illusion that her investment was growing. But the most devastating realization was still to come. I had one more stop to make before confronting Nash. I drove straight to Nash's residential address, the luxury condo complex where Patricia had been spending her Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. I needed to see this place for myself, to understand the full scope of what my wife had been doing behind my back. The complex was impressive. Gated entry, manicured landscaping, expensive cars in every parking space. This wasn't just an affair. This was a lifestyle Patricia had been financing with our stolen retirement money. I parked across the street and waited. At 2:30 p.m., Patricia's Honda pulled into the visitor parking area. She sat in her car for a few minutes, checking her appearance in the mirror, reapplying lipstick. Then she walked confidently to Building C, using a key to enter. A key. She had her own key to Nash's apartment. That afternoon, I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to confront Nash directly, but not at his office. I was going to his apartment, where he'd been carrying on his affair with my wife and planning to steal my life savings. I wanted to see his face when I told him I knew exactly what he was doing. The next Tuesday morning, after Patricia left for her fake real estate class, I drove to Nash's complex. I'd timed it perfectly. Patricia would be at her actual job by now, showing houses to real clients, living her double life with practiced ease. I walked up to Building C, found apartment 247, and knocked on the door. When Nash opened it, he was wearing a silk bathrobe and holding a coffee cup. His confidence vanished the moment he saw me. "Can I help you?" he asked, but something in his voice told me he already knew why I was there. "I'm Gerald Martinez," I said quietly. "Patricia's husband." The color drained from his face instantly. Oh, you're Patricia's husband." He stepped back, suddenly looking much younger than his 43 years. "Listen, man, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here." "No misunderstanding," I replied calmly. "I know about the affair. I know about the fake investment company. I know about the $380,000 my wife has stolen from our retirement accounts to give to you. The only thing I don't understand is how you sleep at night." Nash tried to recover his composure. "Mr. Martinez, I think Patricia may have given you the wrong impression about our relationship. She's an investor in my property development company. That's all. If she's told you something else—" "She hasn't told me anything," I interrupted. "I found out on my own. I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator, Nash. I know a con when I see one. The question is, are you going to keep lying to me, or are we going to have an honest conversation about how this ends?" Nash's shoulders sagged. He invited me in, and what I saw made me sick. The apartment was expensively furnished, clearly paid for with money stolen from his victims. Leather furniture, original artwork, a kitchen that cost more than most people's cars. All of it funded by women like Patricia who thought they were investing in their futures. "Look, Mr. Martinez," Nash said, settling into an armchair that probably cost $5,000. "Patricia came to me. She said you were controlling her money, keeping her from making investments. She said she wanted to build something of her own, be financially independent. I was just trying to help." "By sleeping with her?" That just happened. She was lonely, felt unappreciated. One thing led to another. "And the fake property investments, did those just happen too?" Nash shifted, uncomfortably. "Those aren't fake. They're legitimate business opportunities. The returns might be optimistic, but the properties are real. I've seen your portfolio, Nash. Half those properties don't exist. The other half are worthless desert land. You're running a Ponzi scheme, and my wife is your latest victim." "She's not a victim," Nash said, his voice hardening. "She knew exactly what she was doing. She forged your signature on loan documents. She opened credit cards in your name. She created fake business entities. Patricia isn't some innocent housewife who got swept off her feet. She's been a full partner in this operation." That hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean, full partner?" Nash got up and pulled out a file cabinet. "Patricia doesn't just invest with me, Mr. Martinez. She helps me find new clients. She's referred 3 other divorced or widowed women to my firm in the past 6 months. Women with substantial savings and nobody watching their finances too closely." He showed me a list of names and investment amounts. Susan Chen, widow, $150,000. Dorothy Williams, divorced, $200,000. Margaret Foster, separated, $175,000. All women Patricia had met through her real estate work or social activities. All women who trusted Patricia's recommendation to invest with Nash Property Solutions. "Your wife gets a 10% finder's fee for every new client she brings in," Nash continued. "So far, she's earned $52,500 in referral commissions. Money I've paid directly into the personal account she opened without your knowledge." I felt like I was going to throw up. Patricia wasn't just stealing from me. She was helping Nash steal from other vulnerable women. Women who trusted her, who saw her as a successful real estate agent with financial savvy. She'd turned into a predator, targeting people in situations similar to her own victims. "There's something else you should know," Nash said, seeming to enjoy my shock. "Patricia's planning to leave you. She's already consulted with a divorce attorney. She's been documenting what she calls your financial abuse. claiming you've kept her from accessing marital assets, controlled her spending, prevented her from building financial independence. Financial abuse? She's building a case that you've been financially controlling throughout your marriage. The divorce attorney thinks she can claim spousal support and a larger share of marital assets based on your alleged pattern of financial control. It's actually quite clever. The room was spinning. My wife of 32 years hadn't just betrayed me financially and sexually. She'd turned me into the villain in her story, painting herself as a victim to justify her theft. She was planning to divorce me, take whatever assets remained, and frame me as an abusive husband in the process. I left Nash's apartment feeling like my entire world had collapsed. Everything I'd believed about my life, my marriage, my wife, had been a carefully constructed lie. Patricia wasn't just having an affair, she was running a criminal enterprise, and I was her primary target, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I'd spent 30 years investigating criminals, and I knew exactly what to do next. I drove straight to my lawyer's office and laid out everything I'd discovered. Timothy Fletcher listened with growing amazement as I detailed the scope of Patricia's fraud. "Mr. Martinez, this is one of the most elaborate marital fraud schemes I've ever encountered," he said. "Your wife hasn't just stolen from you. She's built an entire criminal network. We need to act immediately to protect your remaining assets and document everything for criminal prosecution." That afternoon, Fletcher filed for an emergency restraining order, freezing all joint accounts and preventing Patricia from accessing our home equity line of credit. By the time Patricia came home from her real estate class, she was legally prohibited from making any financial transactions without court approval. I was waiting for her in the living room when she walked in. "How was class today?" I asked calmly. "Oh, lots of technical information about commercial property law," she replied. But something in my tone made her nervous. "Gerald, is everything okay? You seem tense." "I'm fine. Actually, I have some exciting news. I've decided to start investing in real estate myself. I met with a very interesting gentleman today, Victor Nash from Nash Property Solutions. He told me the most fascinating story about one of his clients, Patricia Martinez. Maybe you know her?" Patricia went white as a sheet. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I continued in the same calm tone I'd used during thousands of insurance investigations. Nash showed me Patricia's portfolio. Very impressive returns. $380,000 invested over 8 months, currently valued at almost $700,000. Of course, when I told him Patricia Martinez was my wife, he seemed very surprised. Apparently, she'd told him she was divorced. "Gerald, I can explain." "Please do." "Explain how you stole $380,000 from our retirement accounts. Explain how you forged my signature on loan documents. Explain how you've been recruiting other women for Nash's Ponzi scheme. Explain how you've been planning to divorce me and claim I was financially abusive. I'm very interested in your explanations." Patricia collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. You've controlled our money for 32 years. I never had any financial independence. I never had a chance to build something of my own." "So, you decided to steal it?" "It wasn't stealing. It was community property. I had a right to invest it however I wanted." "You had a right to discuss major financial decisions with your husband. You had a right to ask for investment money. You didn't have a right to forge signatures, open secret accounts, and fund a criminal enterprise. Victor loves me. He was helping me build financial security." "Victor is using you, Patricia. He's a professional con artist. You're not his girlfriend. You're his accomplice. And now you're both going to face the consequences." I pulled out the folder of evidence I'd compiled. Bank statements, GPS tracking reports, Nash's client referral records, documentation of the other victims Patricia had recruited. "This is going to the police tomorrow morning. You and Nash will both be charged with fraud, conspiracy, and theft. The other women you've helped him victimize will also file complaints." Patricia stared at the evidence in horror. "You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. You stopped being my wife the day you started stealing from me. You're a criminal now, Patricia, and criminals face justice." The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Nash was arrested within a week on multiple fraud charges. His assets were frozen, his business shut down, his apartment seized. The investigation revealed he'd stolen over $2.3 million from 14 different victims over 3 years. Patricia was charged as an accomplice and faced up to 15 years in prison. She pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for cooperating with the prosecution against Nash. She received 5 years probation, had to pay restitution to Nash's victims, and was prohibited from working in any financial services capacity. She lost everything: our house, our savings, our marriage, her relationship with our children. Philip and Carol stood by me throughout the legal proceedings. They testified about Patricia's lies and manipulation, how she'd used their trust to facilitate her crimes. Our family was devastated, but we were stronger together than Patricia had been, alone with her greed and deception. I recovered about $127,000 of the stolen money from Nash's seized assets. Not enough to restore our retirement savings, but enough to maintain my dignity and independence. I sold the house and moved into a smaller place. Started dating again, a woman named Helen who appreciated honesty and integrity. 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, I received a letter from her in prison. She begged for forgiveness, claimed she'd been manipulated by Nash, insisted she still loved me. I threw the letter away without reading it completely. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive, some trust too shattered to rebuild. People ask me if I regret how everything turned out. Here's what I've learned. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Patricia showed me she was willing to steal, lie, and destroy lives for money. Nash showed me he was a predator who targeted vulnerable people. I showed myself I was strong enough to seek justice instead of enabling crime. The truth has a power that lies can never match, and integrity is worth more than any amount of stolen money.